practice.
Okay, let's go. Okay, number 2. Okay, next group. Next group, please. So if you come up now, you have 4 chances. If you come up last, you have 1 chance. Later. Okay. Yeah. Please. No. So you remember your own number, right? 2. Not bad. 3. Okay. Third one to present. So we have 3 groups from the back. Who's going to go up? Anybody? Come on.
Group 1. Hello.
And group 5. Don't you want to come up and draw the luck?
Group 1.
She did it. She did it.
That's very good. Okay, 2 more groups. Who's starting?
Perfect. It's fate.
Okay, so this one will be the group 4 will be the first speaker, and then group 3 will be the 4. Okay, so let's come.
不然我来讲，现在换我来讲，但是我们打的比较少。
Okay, so let's go. The first group, please.
Group number 2.
Group number 2.
Could we get it on the laptop of the show?
Okay, Gina is gonna say.
The first is group 4. The second is group 2. The third is group 1. The third and the fourth is group 3. The last is group 5.
Okay, so who's representing the group to come up? All the groups want to come up.
I thought group 2 was supposed to start.
No,
According to the draw.
According to the draw, group 2 should start.
And that's not group
who's
2 here.
one?
Yeah.
因为他们看在转的时候，就查查。
One is here.
Anyway, never mind, huh?
No, this is 1 and this is 2. That's 4.
对，就是我以为跟 Peter 我的想法跟 Peter 是一样的，就是想跟他讲的是顺序，所以也就只能这样子。对。我想说，我跟他应该。
Can you please stand to the side, boys and girls, stand to the side so we can see, and then explain to us, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. We're group number 4. Our main problem is elderly individuals who are socially isolated. And next, we're going to start with the left one, and to the middle one, and finally the right one. To my right side, yeah. So first of all, I think one of the main reasons that we see the elderly individuals to be being socially isolated is because their descendants move to urban areas to pursue better careers or other opportunities. And that is mainly because the lack of resources and development in rural areas. And from this, it will lead to a higher demand for social workers in order to look after isolated individuals.
Can I just say something? Explain the whole lot at the bottom first,
Okay.
and then go to the solutions, or to the effects, sorry.
Okay, so the next reason is that they lack of technological skills and entertainment, and that is because like the first is like there's no teaching resources. Like the elderly don't know how to use cell phones or laptops, so that they cannot connect it to the world right now. And second is like technology advances too fast for elderly to keep up. So like we all know how to use Instagram, Facebook, but sometimes they don't know how to use them.
So the third reason is they have a decreased willingness or capability to socialize. And the reason for that is because they become older and they have even poor health and mobility, sometimes even disability. So that will cause them to not want to or can't socialize, and that and not being able to do that will cause loneliness. The last reason is they only have money to support basic living needs. Sometimes not even that. Sometimes they don't even have money to do that. And most of the times the reason for that is because they're retired and they don't have as much income to support extra socializing or education fees. So these are the 4 reasons where elderly individuals not being socially interactive and being socially isolated. Yeah.
So next, I'm going to continue with the effects the red one might lead to. So because of their companies moving to the urban area, there might be a higher demand for social workers in order to look after isolated individuals. For example, there might be someone who have diseases or illnesses that might need hospital or human or volunteers to look after them. So with the individuals who are socially isolated, they will have to need someone to go to visit them regularly in order to make sure their conditions are well and under control. So it will lead to an increased cost of social welfare to whether the government or the voluntary organizations.
Okay, and second, because of the lack of the technological skills and entertainment, so they will lead to the lost contact with newest information. So like for example, there's a pandemic right now, but they do not have information. So when they hang out, so they do not know there's pandemic right now. So they might be quarantined by others, or they might be sick. And this is the major consequences that they will not have. They will lose the newest information.
So the third consequence of people not being socially interactive enough is they might be lonely, and loneliness, according to an APA research, it may cause an above average decline in cognitive functions. And when we're lonely, our brains tells us that we're always physically alerted, and that will very much likely cause mental issues like depression and anxiety, and it is evident everywhere that mental illnesses like depression and anxiety will cause even more physical issues, such as an increase in heart diseases or diabetes. That is our presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All the facts stay there. I think it's a good analysis. One thing I would just add about consequences, which is now very much discussed in countries which have a high elderly or older population. If nothing is done to encourage participation of older people, either through a form of job or some other social activities, they will stay isolated. So the consequence at this stage is also they're kept from or they're not invited from participating in society and in the economy. It's a very important part in terms of solution later on. But at this point, if nothing is done, they're just simply isolated in urban areas or isolated in rural areas.
So what's the consequences? Are you suggesting there should be some consequences because of lack of participation?
Yeah.
Or lack of participation itself is a consequence?
Yeah, no, they're not, let me see this, how to phrase it. They're not given support for reintegration into the economy or society or something like that.
You got it, okay. That's good. Yes, Martin.
2 points. Number one, on the left-hand side at the bottom, you're saying having money to support basic living needs. I would suggest drop the word basic, because if they want to socialize, it means that they're doing something outside the home. So maybe they have enough for food, but they don't have enough to go out and have a restaurant and so on and so forth, and meet others. The second thing, the two consequences that are on top of each other there at the top, I think they should be separated because they are two different issues.
Which ones?
Mental and physical.
So the mental and physical health issues is one thing, and the cognitive decline in cognitive functions is another. They may not be related, because the way you describe them, they're one leading to the other. It means that it has to go through a decline in cognitive function before you arrive at more mental issues. And they are in fact two different things. They might have physical problems that have not to do with anything with cognitive. So separate them, make them two different parallel tracks, that's all.
Well, maybe I follow up on this a bit. I think loneliness may cause decline in mental health rather than cognitive functions. Cognitive function is about thinking. Mental loneliness is a psychology.
No, I think we should, let's keep it as.
Yeah, okay.
Keep them as two different ones,
Yeah.
but parallel.
Okay, that would be good.
But very well done.
Well done.
Okay, thank you very much. Next group, please.
So, good afternoon, everyone. We are Shu, and our problem mainly focus on the
You're
problem.
only 3 people?
The two, one is recording, one is taking notes.
Yes.
Oh.
Okay, so our problem is that women facing difficulties in hiring process, and there are 3 causes, and one is the left and my right hand side. The one is contradiction with the high level education of women, and I want to clarify that the contradiction is about women's they are highly educated, but they don't get the job easily because I'm going to talk about. And the second is companies are concerned that women will have to take time off if they get pregnant or they have husband. And third one is women are expected to stay home and take care of family. And I'm going to talk about the first one. The reason is that men do not want to see women above them, so they don't want to.
They discriminate.
Yeah, they discriminate. And the second one, the reason why companies are concerned that women will have to take time off, because they're only concerned about the short-term benefits instead of diversity. And the third causes is because the traditional social expectations. So in Taiwan and China, the Chinese society, we we usually see women to go to serve their husband, their child, and elders, but they don't want them to go to work or something else. So that's the reason why women are expected to stay home, take care of families.
Thank you.
So after all these causes, these leads to the main problem: women facing difficulties in the hiring process because of all these problems. And these lead to the two consequences. I will start from the one on my right-hand side. Women are underrepresented in employment because they have problems getting a job, even during an interview or their resume. They are having problems getting a job. So they are underrepresented in employment, and the employment rate of women is much more lower than those of men.
So the second consequence is because women are facing difficulties in the hiring process is that because there are difficulties of getting a job, women have less income or even no income, which leads to one of the main themes of our group, which is poverty. Or they could be economically dependent on men, which is a problem and a phenomenon that happens often in the regions of China and Taiwan. And so this is a problem tree. Thank you.
Any from the other groups? From other groups, anything to add? Yeah, Martin.
First of all, great work. I understand perfectly when you're talking about Taiwan, I'm thinking about Egypt, and it's exactly the same picture verbatim. Now, if I were doing this, I would add 2 more consequences up on top. So the consequence of having less income and dependence on men, how does it affect women, or how does it affect society? Okay, so that I mean, yes, they have less money, but why is that important that they have less money? What does it do to the women themselves or to society? The same thing on the left-hand side, they are underrepresented, although I disagree with you because there are some sectors where they are overrepresented. But if you can prove statistically that they are underrepresented, again, how does that affect society and how does that affect the women? That's an important, the second level of effect.
Yeah, so maybe I can add a little bit qualifier to this. It's what level of employment women tend to assume. So that is one variable that you need to consider. So this statement might, as Mark D was saying, might be true for a higher level of positions, but this tend to be not true for so lack of so semi-skilled or unskilled or underpaid jobs, and tend to be women. So there's classification. So I think I agree with Mark. There you need to think a little bit more about this. I would also like to add something to your first column on the left-hand side. Men do not want to see women above them. What are you saying? Is this a cultural value? Is it a religion? A belief system? What is it? Why would what makes men want to keep women below them? You can think a little bit more about that, because that will be a very important variable in your analysis. Any other comments? Ramon?
I think as it is now in the analysis, it also points to the fact that by discriminating against women, there is an enormous potential loss of contributions women could make to the economy and to society. So it's just, I don't know how to best frame it. It's a loss of potential by underusing or discriminating them.
Yeah, so so in other words, you might want to consider a little bit more about the consequences of discriminating against women. Just for your thought. Just one example, by having women excluded from labor market because of their dependency. So we're talking about household or family abuse of women. We're talking about this lot of abused women from the family home violence. So that is one potential consequence. There are many also other consequences, which is beyond just the individual. So yeah.
I have a question. If we take the column just to the right, so we have traditional social expectations, and then the expectation is explicit. Women are expected to stay home. And we have difficulty in the hiring process. And then we go and have less income than men or economically dependent on men. If that's, in a simple way, we could say that's actually a vicious circle. Because again, if my partner, a woman, is earning less than I am for the same job, and we have a child, well, we'll make an economical decision who goes to work and who stays at home. And because she earns less, we fall back in a traditional social expectation that she will. It's not because of that, but it's an economical consideration, and we just replicate what has been before. So I was just thinking about there's just practically a loop there in a vicious circle, so to speak. I think it's very interesting. Thank you.
Other comments? Suggestions? Okay. So thank you very much. After the new thinking, the further thinking. So the third group, group 1, on trade.
Move to the right, please, so we can see. Thank you.
We found that there are seriously problems in developing the country. So economic barriers in developing countries have two types of problems. Firstly, I introduced insufficient sufficient investment include two problems. First one is insufficient professional practitioners. Another expensive infrastructure. Sorry. So many reasons are still out of the grades in their lives.
Continue with the lower part before you move to the upper part.
Okay. Oh, sorry. I want to introduce the favorable power principles and the lack of legislative framework for independent power product. And then I place another person to introduce.
So, given the first type of the reasons, so there is very clear that many residents are still out of greens in daily lives. They have not enough energy to sustain the daily life. Also, correspondingly, the electronic power for industrial production could be crowded out, thereby causing further low GDP. And the low GDP will suspend the utilize of insufficient investment. There is a cycle. There is a great cycle that causes the low development extent in developing countries. As for the second type of reasons, people could not transfer the traditional fuels such as fossil fuel to green energies, and thereby what they can only do is to rely more and more fossil fuel, thereby causing greenhouse gases, and also more acid deposition. Also, furthermore, acid deposition will damaging the fertility soil and drinking water. Thereby, they will causes great threat on daily agricultural production. That is all. Thank you so much.
Wow. Okay. So what happened to the two other teammates?
We're responsible for the solution.
Oh, okay. You're responsible for the solution. Okay, good.
That's wrong. You should really, as a group, focus on the analysis of the problem, and as a group, you look at the solution.
So with that said, I would like to challenge you in terms of your problem statement. Economic barriers in developing countries for what?
For green energies.
Okay, so please complete that sentence.
Sorry about that.
Yeah. And like to, I would like to add another box here. Investment, you have domestic investment using your own money or using foreign direct investment.
Yes, so currently.
So put it on two sides when you analyze it because reasons are very different.
Yes.
Okay, so just a suggestion. And then of course, the reasons you can list it. So we need to have one more box. Any other comments? I have Ramon first.
Okay. Economic barriers are typical causes. So if you take it down from problem statement, and it's just the wording sometimes. When you have the first consequence on the right, unable to substitute fossil fuel energies, the positive statement there will be lack of renewable energy, for instance. Why? Then maybe that's another cause because they don't know how to substitute fossil fuel, or they cannot, don't have the money for renewables, or they don't know how to transform energy, including renewables. But the first consequence, unable to substitute, is not, in that sense, it's understandable it could be seen as a consequence, but it mostly is renewable energy is not available. Why? That will get you to the cause, which I will put down underneath it, or underneath the problem statement. When many residents are still out of the grid in daily lives, you mean the electricity grid?
Yeah.
Right. Why is it actually? Is it because of all the causes you have listed, or is it simply because they live in rural areas and there is no grid, there's no no cables, nothing?
No infrastructure.
Is there a specific reason why their access to the grid, no matter whether in the city or in the countryside, are both the same reasons? What's your analysis about that?
Yes. So let me try to briefly explain that. As we can see that in many developing countries, electricity is the difficulty in their daily life. So meaning the electricity accessibility is strictly limited. So for example, in many areas of America, so they could rely on green energies to get more energies to promote their daily lives. However, this part is blocked. So
yeah, but okay, it's good attempt to explain. But green energy or not green energy, either you have an infrastructure, power lines or you don't have. So even if you might have renewable energy, green energy, if there is no power line to bring the electricity to the rural areas, that's a major cause. So maybe you have to differentiate green or not green energy from the distribution system of bringing electricity to the people, in a way. What is now the official problem statement?
Yeah, economic areas. So it means that the utilize of green energy is not going well in developing countries.
So are you saying the problem statement then could be lack of green energy or something? Because now it's a typical cause. It's not a problem statement, it's a cause.
Can I add just a couple of points?
Yeah,
here?
please.
I fully agree with Raymond that the problem statement, the big box there, needs rewording to make it more in line with the subject of discussion. And the second thing is the word grids, where you have many residents are still out of the grids in the area. What I think you may mean is that they don't have electricity available. They don't have to be on the grid. As I explained to you, in Israel they have these solar panels on top of every house to provide cheap energy to the household. So maybe the solution, this will come as then a solution later on when you work on the solution tree, that because they don't have electricity, not that they are not connected to the grid, there's two different meanings here. Energy, power. They don't have access to electrical energy or power, then the solution will be to look for green energy solutions like solar panels, like wind, etc. You get my point? It's linguistic, but it also has meanings in terms of the solution that we will be producing later on.
Okay, I think your example is an interesting one because it has been proposed to many developing countries to look for not grid. Grid requires big infrastructure.
That is why we utilize the word, because that is a great energy.
However, you do have a problem with money investment. So maybe one of the solutions is that they are also not looking at some local, without huge distribution, local network or local power generation type of solutions.
That is an upcoming which will release
so
later.
One of the things to do is that what upcoming solutions should be part of your pre-analysis and diagnosis. So I suggest if you have thought about it to include that. The second thing I actually have a little bit of issue. We are talking about the relationship between trade and energy solution. What does that mean? Why would that be a relationship between trade and energy transition?
So in my understanding, we are trying to introduce trade to solve the shortage of green energy in developing countries.
I think you are talking about the domestic market.
Sure.
That's where the confusion could come. Not the international market of which exists. Right, of countries producing electricity and then send it and selling it off to other countries. Here, I think it's an interesting focus on the domestic energy market, and I think that's okay, that's fine.
Yeah. Marty, do you agree?
I agree with the boss always.
That sounds like you don't want to get into an argument, but anyway.
No, it's correct. Obviously, the element of trade is at the moment not there, but I presume it will come as part of the solution later on.
Yeah. So because if you go for household generated green energy, you might have surplus. Then there will be a trade component in that. How do you sell your surplus?
Yes, you are introducing the answers for me. For us.
Okay, so maybe we will see that coming up. Any other thoughts, Cecile or David?
No, I was going to suggest, that the wording of a problem statement, if it was clearer, I think it would help us a great deal. But I mean, what was suggested is fine. I mean, when you say lack of green energy, there are two aspects when you say lack of availability, it's just not being produced, and if it's being produced, it's too expensive for poor people to have access to it. So in your analysis, you may want to differentiate between the fact that it's not being produced or not sufficiently, and that even if it is being produced, it may be too expensive for a number of households to afford.
Yeah, it's access and affordability of whatever energy.
Which translates into availability, both of them, because it's not available because it's not there, or because it's too expensive. So that's exactly it.
Thanks for that clarification. Any other thoughts from your group? You okay with this? Okay. So I hope that you will take this feedback into consideration and modify your problem.
It's a difficult topic.
Yeah, it's a difficult topic, and thanks for making the effort. And I also wanted to add, we could go into the third level of analysis. Okay? Because the infrastructure is too expensive, which is true. But why? Why the infrastructure is expensive? Think about that. Okay, the next group is environmental damage. Okay, go.
So hello, this is Group 3 and I'm Jethro. So let's look at our problem. Our problem is environmental damage of non-eco-friendly food production. And going on into our first primary cause. Environmental destruction caused by the use of chemical fertilizers implicates that farmers are using non-eco-friendly fertilizers that damages the land, and further explanation, lack of inducements for using eco-friendly materials is one of the causes that the farmers still use chemical fertilizers. And another reason is that they might lack the education and the right sustainable concept, that in their mind they don't quite understand or see the thing important. The thing is, they probably don't have this kind of eco-friendly thing in their mind, so they're still using chemical fertilizers.
Good afternoon, this is Ethan. So I'm going to introduce our second primary cause, which is constant emissions of greenhouse and toxic gases. The main reason of this is because there are large amounts of carbon footprints of animals and factories. Due to the World Agricultural Organization of the United Nations, there are 1.5 billion cows emit carbon dioxide, accounting for about 18% of world carbon dioxide emissions. It is even more serious than cars' carbon dioxide emissions, which is very surprising. So, due to these two causes, it leads to the environmental damage of non-eco-friendly food production.
Okay, let's get into the chase. So we all know that deforestation is a thing. The reason for this is because, well, there's a demand for more crop. The reason that there is more demand for crop because global population is growing. We all know that. And with more population, you have more mouths to feed. and when you have more mouths to feed, you always do the most simple, the most simple way possible, you slash and burn. When you slash and burn, you basically burn down all the trees, all the life in that field, because you want to just get rid of it and start a new land. And this is what causes deforestation.
So going on into our effects. So our primary effects, land value and usability disabled, which means that if you use too much chemical fertilizers and other non-eco-friendly substance into the land becomes unvalued, and it might not be able to grow any other kind of crops in a few years. And another one is harmful substance consumed by humans. Well, if chemical fertilizers are used on crops and we eat them, we're definitely going to have these harmful substances in our body, which causes long-term potential risk in our body and in fact affects our life.
And with the constant emission of greenhouse and toxic gases, it will lead to the rising average global temperature and ozone depletion, which will cause the risk of cancer, skin cancer, and eye cancer get higher, and also the whole Earth will become hotter and hotter. And with these consequences, it will lead to two secondary consequences, which is a lesser acceleration of glaciers melting. The glacier in the Antarctica and the pole will start, the ice layer will start melting, and the frequency of extreme weather and disaster will increase. For example, like the super hurricane and the droughts, these kinds of disaster frequency will therefore increase.
Okay, so now we have one cause, is that trees are not going to exist. Why? Because deforestation burns down everything. And why trees are important is that because for trees, they're essential for our habitat and daily lives for like multiple reasons. The first reason is that trees actually provide oxygen for us to breathe. The second reason is that trees can also slow down erosion, which is another thing, and also can provide a natural habitat for wildlife. And while after trees are going to be gone like forever, biodiversity is going to be either harmed or destroyed, because when their natural habitat is down, there is a really big chance that these species are going to go extinct, therefore messing up the food cycle. And that will be all. Thank you.
Thank you. I would like to invite the two ladies of the group, if they know, to address the comments and feedback from the group. Thank you very much. Okay, we're on first.
Okay, just some words which will be useful for you to introduce now, so you can afterwards find solutions. The word loss of biodiversity is really crucial for us, for everybody in the future. And you already mentioned it a bit, but use the word biodiversity because it means something specific. Then about the current use of pesticides and fertilizers goes hand in hand with monoculture agriculture.
You understand what is monoculture?
When whole areas are just produce for one item, which is the trend in many developed countries, but also now in developing countries. By making such monoculture agriculture, again, you decrease biodiversity. And the last thing to add as a word, as an acronym, you have to put in GHG, greenhouse gases. It's not just CO2, that could be sulfur. There are many other negative environmental impacts based on overuse of fertilizers and chemicals. So just add somewhere up there GHG. Okay.
Other comments? Yes.
And good work.
Thank you.
Excellent.
Okay, sure.
I would like to raise the question about the food production. So who are the people behind that, your problem? And then that will connect to the solution, right? So all your items here, you first talk about the problem, and who are the people behind that to do that, to bring the action to the
Yeah, it's
result.
a very important comment because there's more than 1 billion small landholder farmer. They have 1 hectare. But then you also have other people, huge amount of piece of land. They have very different perspective, and I think that is a very important.
Professor Tsai's comment is very good.
Yeah.
It comes together with over-concentration and consolidation of the agricultural industry, where big companies outcrowd the small farmers.
And they use
That's
very
definitely,
different,
that's one cause I
technology.
forgot to suggest that you add that too.
Yeah, that's a very excellent question. So in terms of your problem analysis, you should see the farming agriculture company versus a small landholder farmer. So that can be family, can be a community. So they have very different approach to the land conservation. Other comments, Marky?
2 points. Number one, when you are giving the statistic from FAO, the problem with cattle is not CO2, but it's methane. That's the one of the greenhouse gases is methane, but that's the one you meant rather than CO2. Okay, number one. Number two, I'm an economist, so my question is always why do people use non-eco-friendly food production methods? Probably because the eco-friendly production method produces a product that's more expensive. So that element of price of the final product may be something that you might want to add to the causes of such environmental damage. So that when you come to the solution, then the government can use policies to encourage more eco-friendly food production by subsidizing or by doing other things.
Mahdi is adding, without that he said it, that's the example of a negative externalities. Negative externalities would mean that the production of the big farming industries through pesticide and fertilizers produces negative impact elsewhere. And sometimes our governments actually encourage it by subsidizing
the wrong thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And therefore, the import of food produced in Europe or USA to Africa is actually cheaper than the food produced in Africa itself. Just think about that. It's
artificially cheap.
So now you have other things that will come into play. It's because here, if we look at it, agriculture population average probably 2, 3, 4% of the total population. While Africa, basically most of the people are in the agriculture sector. And how can you produce cheaper, besides government subsidy, is by going into mechanized farming. And mechanized farming makes it very difficult to be eco-friendly. So I'd like to also comment on the use of language. The land value and usability is disabled. Check it again, because that's not what you want to say. It deteriorates and becomes unusable. So that's one of the things. And deforestation also have another consequences you might want to consider, is water stress. Take a look at in India, for example. They have been pumping deep wells on the ground. They now go into 150, 200 meters deep in order to get water. But the more they pump the water out, they lose a lot of green groundwater. So that makes also many places actually uninhabitable, and you cannot do farming.
That makes it salinated.
Yeah, and salinated. So that has a serious midterm impact in terms of water.
True.
And another thing which I would like to say is that the farming practice, lack of education and the right sustainable concept, maybe it's also that's room for traditional knowledge. The agriculture didn't start today. That's how we all survived and were right here in the 21st century. So there's something about how to maintain the land, the ecosystem in such a way which is not intervened by so-called modern science and modern technology. So I would suggest you think a little bit more about this area. And I was laughing when you talk about cows and methane. I remember there was a project from Australia. They thought methane is one of the things is to convert it into bioenergy. So they thought, if I connect a balloon at the back of each cow, can I collect enough to create new green energy? But that project didn't work. But you could see people are really using their imagination, trying to find solutions to make our agriculture sustainable, to our energy also greener. So I would encourage you to use your imagination and to go a little further with that. Okay, any other comments from okay, Cecile, please.
I don't want to be the devil's advocate, but when you talk about the concentration of agriculture into, agro businesses, when you talk about the price, the issue of eco-friendly agriculture being more expensive, there's also, I think, the fact that when you talk about the green revolution and so on, feeding 8 billion people and counting, you need high yield agriculture. And high yield agriculture, so far, I don't think anybody has been capable to reconcile the two demands, one for high yield productivity to feed 8 billion, soon 9 billion, and soon 10 billion, on the one hand, and pushing for agricultural techniques that do not damage the environment. So when you look at your causes, try to go, deeper into that, because it will be important when you try to recommend solutions.
Yeah, thank you, Cecile.
Just to make it even more complicated than it already is.
Because I think we can add one element about food waste.
I'd like to respond as an angel advocate.
What?
I'd like to respond as an angel advocate to say that statistics are clearly showing about 30% of existing food is thrown away. So we don't need to have much more continuous increase of output if we can also affect human behavior and lack of throwing away whatever they eat or eat too much. There are ways to also address this output or lack of supply and demand.
I think that would come in the solution.
No.
Seriously?
Yeah. I think we're overdoing this.
No, but it is important to keep that in mind. We are not, in general, lacking of food production. What is missing is the mismatch, now using polite language, is that food is here, the need is here, a lot of people couldn't afford it. That's the issue. And then here, you throw away an apple because it has one black dot. Here, they never seen a bad apple. You see, so a lot of it is really the social system that we have that is materialized or embedded into the economic system. So I welcome you to think a little bit more about that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm not going to say that. So our last group, please. the cyber.
The high-tech stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, so hi everyone. We are Group 5, and our research topic is partnership and cyber security. And I'm Ian. Okay, now the main question of our group is the lack of partnership between entities to build security net for cyber attacks. And there you can see there are two major causes. And I'm going to introduce this one. As you can see, this is a big causes, and it's refused to share the hack and communicate information. And this causes is concerned about reputation damage from reviewing the incidents that are being hacked. Because if the enterprise or entity review the fact that they are being hacked, their investors or customers may think, oh, this entity is not trustworthy. So they are maybe concerned about or afraid of being the incident to be reviewed. Okay.
Louder, please, louder.
The second reason for the refusal to share the information is because that there are contrasting interests among the entities because they are competitors. So they lack mutual trust, and which also leads to the refusal to share the information that they are being attacked.
Okay, so the second cause is lack of common cooperative funding and agency. As we all know that if you want to do anything, money is the key. So if you don't have a third party funding or a third party agency, those companies would like lack of mutual trust. So they will do all the things on their own and neglect to share their information. And the partnership requires more than major entities. It requires engagement of minor entities. I mean, even you through up a third party funding or an agency, it tends to gathering those big company and and oversee those small company or small entity. So it is really important to gather up all the major and minor entities.
And so after all the causes, here comes our results of the lack of partnerships between entities to build security net for cyber attacks. So as you can see, these two results are exactly the same, which is the information of attacks are not shared because they don't have a great partnerships between the entities, and so the information of cyber attacks or information of cyber attacks cannot flow between them, and so their information cannot be shared, but it's divided into two final results. The first one is entities lack knowledge when the same attack happens again. Because if they cannot recognize the question, if they cannot recognize the problemness, then they cannot deal with the problem, and then the problem comes again and again, and it becomes the vicious circle. And the second result is entities lack of resources to secure themselves from attacks. And that's the same reason because they don't have the balance between the partnerships between entities. And so that's our presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to get some feedback because I start to feel like we are looping. So, comments, thoughts, Martin?
For me, the problem lies with the problem statement. I think your problem statement should be something like recurring cyber attacks on small entities or companies or whatever. So this is the problem. It keeps happening. The attacks keep coming. Why they keep coming? That's where you come down the reasons and the effects. So your statement itself requires a little bit of rewording to go something like, I'm just proposing this, recurrence, the constant recurrence of cyber attacks in business and on private individuals or companies.
You mean we have to specify our topic into a certain?
No.
No. The problem is not the lack of partnership.
This is actually
It's a
one
cause.
of the cause.
It's a cause.
So you need to move that down, but you need to put that on top. What is the problem? Right? Why is partnership is so important?
Logically, the problem lies because of lack of partnership. But the problem is not the lack of partnership as much as the constant cyber attacks that keep happening all the time. You see the logic, the logic behind it's just a mental switch of the picture. And then the lack of partnership becomes one of the reasons. And then you can go down or up as you wish.
And I also have a little bit of a problem with the consequences. I invite all of you to suggest, all of you actually, not just the faculties, to suggest some potential consequences.
What is the problem for you? The consequence.
For instance, you said, here the information of the text are not shared. RICS refuse to share information. So that is it's a valid observation that there is a consequence or there are consequences, but it's not the way you expressed. So what you want us to say. Maybe one of the things is that it makes the whole connectivity that advantage of internet disappear because we're not connected. It's all isolated because the solution is it's fragmentation rather than integration. So maybe instead of saying I'm not shared because you already said it here, but the consequences is that we have a less connected cyber world, which could bring many different benefits. Yes.
I think also in terms of the effects, the first one on the left where it says the resources to fight, that might be a cause rather than an effect.
That's the second loop I was referring to.
So
this one
because there are not enough resources to fight, then we have the recurrent problem of, you see the logic again. Whether the effect of that should be looked at later, but definitely as it stands, the resource issue should come down as one of the basic reasons why we have this recurrent problem.
So I think now you can hear the importance of phrasing the problem more sharply. To move this down and rephrase it, then it's easier to see what are the consequences. One of the consequences is reducing. One is about efficiency, because that's part of the reason why digitalization has been promoted, considered to be a strategic choice. It's because greater efficiency, because you can reach across the border, you can overcome this problem of time and distance. So this is just one area of thought that you want. David, you want to comment?
I think I understand the comments made. I think it's difficult because these loops are continuous and
Yes, they're vicious.
So we're trying to see.
It's a recurring issue. And I do think we can rephrase the research statement, so to see how we can play around with that. I think though the aspects that you've touched upon, we'll see if they substantiate or not when you do your research. I'm not sure about it, but this is why research is fun. We'll discover what it's about. But I think you have the key elements to start starting to approach the subject, and then we'll discover for step by step what is actually the case. It's also, I think it's a very difficult in the sense that we're talking about partnerships, and some partnerships are not very public. And so this is also an element in cybersecurity, and the whole question of trust in there, which is sort of one of the underlying issues that we show there, the lack of mutual trust. So lots of things happen behind the table or behind the doors. And so this is also one of the main challenges of doing social research in this aspect. I think you have the basic stones, and then we can sort of move on from there.
Yeah, maybe I can introduce a term. Because competition and cooperation, partnership is to support collaboration. Competition and collaboration doesn't have to be always in contradiction. Because IBM in many sort of when we started the globalization, they introduced a term, which is quite nice. It's called competition. C-O-O-R, petition. Meaning you cooperate and you compete at the same time. And we have seen that model being used and applied in many places. So that's another way of defining the boundary. But anyway, I hope that can be something that you want to look into as a way to look at it. Because to say there's no competition in this cyberspace, it's impossible. But how to compete in a constructive manner that encourages the improvement of the system and spreading the benefit, that could be a worthwhile vision to think about.
Quick comment. In the effects side, once you've changed the problem statement, in the effects side, there are two issues that come to mind. One, in terms of how much people will trust using the internet to do their daily business as people, as individuals. But also how that might affect companies that use the internet to market their products, how might affect them. Do you understand what I'm saying? A bank, for example. Everybody likes to do online banking. So easy.
Not everyone.
Not everyone. Okay. I don't like it either, but that's how I do it. So maybe because of this recurrent cyber attacks, I don't want to use the internet anymore as an individual. But also as a bank, I might lose business because of the recurrent cyber attacks, which cause people to be afraid to put their information online. So if I buy from Alibaba or if I buy from Amazon, and I know that somebody can get into Amazon and take my information, I don't want to buy from Amazon. So there is an effect on the personal, on the individual
consumer behavior,
but also on the business behavior. So that might be one of the effects to look at once you change the problem statement.
Make it sharper. I would like to invite actually Xiaoxue. Do you have a comment to that, since this is your line of study?
It's a very good topic for me. Actually,
Could you be a bit louder, please? Thank you.
Okay. I'm sorry, maybe I will give the comment tomorrow.
Okay. Fair enough, yeah, I called you on the spot. But anyway, thank you. So, I want to thank the group, and that would be to redraft this statement and then send it to us and incorporate some of the costs and effect. It's a very important topic, and it's also very much going to impact the future to come. Remember, Cecile made the presentation and she talked about the 2030 agenda requires 6 transformations. And the 6th one is digital. And so you could see it is underpinning many other things related to 2030 agenda's implementation. So, I'm looking forward to your next iteration of your problem tree. Thank you very much. So,
jumping in the lake.
So today is a hot day, and if you want to cool off, to go into the lake to swim probably is a good idea. But be careful, don't go anywhere. You have to go to the place that's plage, P-L-E-V-G-E. That means swimming, and that's the same background, so it's safer. And the second thing is I would like to say tomorrow, we will be here in the morning, and we will have take lunch at the ILO. And the lunch in the ILO actually is very good, and price-wise is also even better than City. And so we will go after the class early, and then we have 2 presentations inside of the ILO, and to look at, to listen to them in terms of follow up on each one's presentation. We look at SDG 8, and also looking at some of the resolution. The resolution might sound very remote, but it offers the legitimacy to the topic and gives the sort of the validity of your questions. Otherwise, if it's, so that sometimes people say, it is only superficial, but it's not. When you work at it, you say this has a legitimacy because it has been agreed by other countries, and therefore the topic is valid. So with that said, I wish you a cool evening, not too hot, and we're going to see you tomorrow.
Sorry, before we all go away, can you clarify for everybody what's happening on Wednesday afternoon? And the follow-up meeting with Ruth and supervisors.
Yeah, because you can see that we do hope that we will be able to the end of on the 29th and on the 30th. On the 30th, you will be able to have a presentation that shows us your analysis based on secondary literature, meaning that what you find on the internet, help you to improve on your diagnosis and come forward with recommendations and make a group presentation of that. In the past, we have seen groups always surprise us all with excellent quality of work. So we do not expect less than this. So 30th, that will be the end date. So on Wednesday, you see on the schedule, there's a list of private, sort of a group time with the mentors. And this is when you can discuss your questions, your pondering, to improve your work. You can freely organize where you want to meet. Okay, so maybe you might want to meet back over here, or you want to meet in town, or it's up to you with your advisor. Okay. But for most of the time, because the program is very tight, so we suggested 7 o'clock here. But you can move it forward as soon as the official program is okay. So, any other questions? If not, see you tomorrow. Oh, dressing code. Tomorrow, since we're going to the United Nations, please wear longer pants. It's hotter.